As I was explaining in part 1, how Hosea 4 verse 6 tells us that as God's people, we also perish or are destroyed. It might not end in eternal damnation, but what the scripture is telling us is that what you don't know is killing you, or what you don't know how to fight is killing you, even as a believer. And then Proverbs 11 verse 9 reveals that deliverance for God's people, or the just, will come through knowledge. And this statement comes after the first part of the verse, which tells us that with their words, a hypocrite destroys his neighbor. It says, with their words, words that destroy you are curses. Proverbs 18 verse 21 says, death and life are in the power of the tongue. And Deuteronomy 30 verse 19 says, I call heaven and earth as witnesses today against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Notice how it equates life with blessings and then death with cursing. But when you know what has been spoken against you, you now have the power to fight it, which is why Proverbs 11 verse 9 ends and says, through knowledge the just shall be delivered. But isn't it funny though how the world tells us ignorance is bliss, or things like ignore it and it will go away? But then again, if you really think of it, it's understandable why the world would say that. Because after all, who is running this world? 2 Corinthians 4 verse 4 says, whose mind the God, small g, of this world has blinded. And so if the devil is running this world, it's his goal to destroy you. So he'll try to blind your mind too by telling you ignorance is bliss. See, as Christians, we need to be alert. Don't rule things out as coincidence or just accept the explanations that science, society, or even these days that a pastor gives you, that it's genetics, you need to sow a seed, or it's global warming. For example, Exodus 23 verse 24 to 26 and Genesis 20, if you read the whole chapter, show us that barrenness can be a result of serving other gods or adultery respectively. But the way it will play out, it will look like it's genetics. Doctors might ask you if anyone in the family has a similar condition, and maybe there is someone. But the truth of the matter is that the root cause is spiritual. Another example is 2 Samuel 21. Let's read verse 1 to 3. Now there was a famine in the days of David for 3 years, year after year, and David inquired of the Lord. And the Lord answered, it is because of Saul and his bloodthirsty house, because he killed the Gibeonites. See, the cause of this famine wasn't global warming or whatever else, but it was because of what Saul did to the Gibeonites, who are a remnant of the Amorites. And for 3 years, David and his people were perishing or being destroyed because they lacked the knowledge of the cause of the famine. And I'm sure the conditions made it look like it's just the weather, until David inquired of the Lord. But now, surely we're not expected to hand over 7 men from our families for atonement. No, that was specific for the Gibeonites. In 2 Chronicles 7 verse 14, it says, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sins and heal their land. Now, what does it mean to humble yourself? Well, in Deuteronomy 8 verse 2 and 3, it says, remember how the Lord your God led you through the wilderness for these 40 years, humbling you and testing you to prove your character and to find out whether or not you would obey his commands. Verse 3, yes, he humbled you by letting you go hungry. So deliberately going hungry, which is fasting, is a form of humbling yourself. Not fasting TV or social media or chocolate or makeup. That's not fasting. Now you can do that along with going hungry and fasting food. Then God will hear from heaven and heal your land. And just like with David, the knowledge only came when he inquired from the Lord. I mean, how else would have he known that a famine was the result of people having been wrongfully killed? And then for him in this case, there was a specific request in order for him to make atonement. So for you too, humbling yourself and fasting might not be the final answer, but it is a very good place to begin the journey of acquiring knowledge. Let's close it like this. My people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge of the words their neighbors speak, but through the knowledge of these words they may be delivered.